My name is Tama Roberts. I am a Cherokee ceramist. I'm from Pryor, Oklahoma. I have been working with clay for about 6 years now, and I have worked with Bill Glass Jr. and Troy Jackson. I'm hoping one day to work with these two lovely ladies right here. They're great potters. Yes. And it's been a great experience. How many of you have ever worked with clay besides you two? Man in the back. Okay. How many of you want to work with clay? One person. All right. Two people. All right. Well, I will say that it's one of those mediums that can truly hold an emotion and release an emotion. You'll see it sometimes in paintings when they're first started. You'll see the emotion and movement, but I feel that the clay really can feel, our emotions that day or that moment. And in fact, Carrie and I were just talking about pieces that when we were working on them, it depends on your state of mind. And a lot of times I do not start with a sketch or an idea in mind. It will come after I touch the clay. And when you're working with it, you try to be in the best state of mind if you can. But there are some days you just can't. You just have bad days. And so we were just talking about that. When you get a piece that is less than what you think you should, put out there or whatever, we often destroy them. And for me, that's kind of like a letting go of that emotion. So, and what you're going to see if you come by my booth at 152, my style has a tendency to change over time. And the reason is I will let the environment that I'm in or the emotions that I'm in influence my style a little bit. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm still trying to traverse that. But right now I'm into deep incising, flowing patterns, taking the Southeastern design and changing it a little bit, just kind of putting my own emotion into it. This clay that I threw this morning about 3 a.m. So it's just about right. This is a stoneware. So I will use stoneware. I will use earthenware. I will use Henda clay, Lizella clay, whatever I can get my hands on. But I have felt that this white stoneware is really one that's conducive for wheel throwing, hand building, slab building, coiling, because I'll try all of them. I'm still trying to find that good combination. And this one has a light grog in it. And grog is just a sand or a shell or anything that you can add to the clay body to prevent thermal shock. I like clays that are a little less temperamental because I will Raku with this clay as well, which it can go from, do you guys know anything about Raku clay or the process of Raku? It's an Eastern method of firing, basically and that's actually a family name. And they take it from the live fire out really fast and then transition it into a reduction chamber, or they'll add chemicals to it to get those vibrant colors. So this clay has enough grog added to it that it can withstand the thermal shock. So I like the tougher clays. And now I have the Anna Mitchell Cultural Center in Bonita, which Miss Victoria's mother represents, which I was a part of, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful project and opportunity. And I was actually gifted with that award last night, which made me cry all the way home. But while they were working on the site, they actually hit a clay vein of natural clay. And Bonita is real prominent for clay. And I actually have Raku'd with that clay, and it has almost no grog. And it's just very fine. It feels like butter. It's just so fine, and it has a great elasticity, but I have also Raku'd with that. I'd like to push him to see how far that clay body will go. Because a lot of times you get in those and they're like, well, you can only fire it to this schedule or this. I'm like, no, I want to try and push it as hard as I can to see what that clay will actually do. And, as you look back, pottery has been around for millions of years. It's not new. It's just now, I think, kind of getting a resurgence. But not only was it utilitarian, but the tools. So our ancestors had these methods down way before we came along. And so what I'm trying to do is I want to see how far they pushed their, because they didn't know. They didn't have firing schedules. And Carrie, she fires in live fire. And to me, that's so risky because it's so hard to control that temperature. So with the commercial kilns that I use, you're better to control it. But if you look back at our ancestors, they didn't have those ability to do that. But the pottery now has gone from utilitarian to its own art form that can stand alone. And I also think that ceramics is not only just pottery, as you can see by Bill and Demas's work. Demas just won Best of Show last night. His piece has ceramic pieces on it. So you can go to my Instagram page and you'll see I'm crossing over to ceramics and metal. So I want to combine those two together, and also some glass. So I think if you're interested in pottery, you're going to be so frustrated at times, but you're also going to receive the greatest gift you can really receive. It's kind of like taking your emotions, putting them in here, and then once they're here, they're just solid. I know that sounds maybe like a cliche, but it's so true. And when I take an empty vessel like this, it's funny because I was so tired last night. I don't really remember doing this. I was like, I know it's going to be like crazy, windswept, crooked. It wasn't too bad, but it's a little heavy. But I'll look at it and I kind of go, what is it saying? Where do I want to go with it? Do I want to go? And if you ever have a chance to see my work, it's very geometric often. And then I will also take an image like that circle right there, that light. I've actually thrown a tube like that. And so I'll just look at shapes, and it doesn't have to be the line of the wall. It can be the angle of the light or the shape of that door handle. And then and it's weird. It just kind of like comes through my hand. I don't know why, where it comes from. I think it helps being a little crazy or a lot. I haven't decided yet, but I won't pre-sketch. Rarely do a pre-sketch unless I'm doing a bigger sculpture. And then I'll just start, like I say, I'll kind of sit back from the piece and look at it. Like I can see the shadow here of this microphone on this, and I see that the wedges in the clay, and I kind of go, okay, like a third of the way down. In art, there's called the rule of thirds. And so you look at a third of this pot, and I'll say, okay, so do I want to go a third of the way down with one design, a third of the way up, or do 1/3 and then 2/3 in designs? Because what that does is it gives you a design balance. So in marketing, you're going to see like on these, I know I'm kind of going off the res here, but bear with. You'll look at these signs, like anytime you're looking at artwork, you're going to look at advertising and how they use the rule of thirds. I use that in pottery because I think it's aesthetically pleasing to the viewing public when you're looking at that. Okay. And then also when I'm carving, I'll look at the transitions of an image. The movement is what I'm doing right now. And I really want people to feel it when you're touching a pot. It has a soul, it has a spirit. So anyway, okay. So what I do, if you guys are getting into clay or pottery or ceramics of any time, sculpting, I would go to Diamond Core Tools online. They have the best, these little tools, $40. They're the best tools you can buy. So this is what I'm using right now to get that fine line. So since the lighting is kind of funky, I have to take off my glasses when I do this because I'm usually doing up close work. So usually what I'll do, it's kind of like, so I can't see. I'm just going to start and then I'll just kind of flow. Yeah, this is like, it really depends on the piece. This was thrown on the wheel. And then what I'll do is, like I say, I'll start with this little line. And then I'll kind of go, okay, how does that look? Whatever. It just looks like a backwards S. And then I feel bad that you guys can't really see. But then I'll add another. And then it looks crooked because this clay has a little bit of grog in it, what I do is I'll come back. I have another trick here, paintbrush with water. It really smooths it out and it kind of gives it that flow. And you may have to do it several times to kind of help that flow around and get smooth. But you kind of see the difference there, the transition from the rough to the smooth on the edges. Yeah. Usually right now I'm in a black and white phase. I don't know why. I do know. I take that back. It's mainly white to me is hopeful. It's rebirth. It's renewing. And it is, I think when I'm looking at a piece, I'm usually moved by an earthy tone or a real clean tone. I can't stand real harsh colors. And that's where I'm at right now. Now, there are a few pots that I've made that I did incorporate some, turquoise color. But right now I'm into, if I'm working with the clay, a natural clay or a native clay, I want that clay body to speak and be seen, because that's the most beautiful thing about a natural. And Oklahoma is rich because we're on a huge fault line. So we're rich with natural clay. And I would encourage you guys to go out and dig some and try it, because it's different than, it's not your mom's ashtray that you used to make. I'm experimenting with different types of underglazes. An underglaze is a glaze without any silica in it, basically like liquid glass. It fires more of a flat or a matte, and it will still absorb dyes, if you will, or colors, if you will. I'm experimenting right now with furniture stain. You can actually you can do an underglaze on a pre-bisque. Bisque is the first phase, the first firing. You can put underglaze on this and bisque with it, or a slip, which is your clay without any grog in it. And they burnish it, and it makes it beautiful. Like Jane Austen is just amazing with that. You can see her burnishing. That's a really neat technique to add the color to your clay. Here's another thing. I burn a lot of stuff because I want to see, like I said, I'll take a welder or a torch and see how hot I can get it and see what will melt on it. So when after you've rakued a piece or taken it out of the kiln, it's like 1730 degrees Fahrenheit. That clay body resists the shock of being removed because of the grog. And at that stage, you can sprinkle it with sugar. What happens is the keratin melts like the sugar on the pot, and it goes, whoop, gets that little crackle, and it shrinks. So that gets that color. So, but you can use horsehair, you can use human hair. We've actually used our own hair. The human hair it's thinner, and so it doesn't do as drastic of a twisting, if you will, when you put it on there. And that's the thing when you look at clay. Clay is just an amazing thing, because the molecules align like our skin cells. So when you look at them under a microscope, and so when you look at that, you're like, holy moly. I didn't believe it until I actually looked it up online, and I was like, holy crap. And if anybody's a doctor or, gone to anatomy, you can see that at that cellular level. But this is what I do right here. So I don't know if you can see it. So that's how it starts, is I'll start to carve and then I'll smooth it out, and it can take hours, you can't hear, try. I can make her another one. You can, let's say, if usually what happens, what I'll get, the worst part on these things is I'll get some drag, or I'll find a piece of sand. It takes a chunk out, and then you can smooth them out, but then you're going to have a difference in depth in your clay. Like here, I can see a little air bubble. and I can come back in and smooth it. Or that's usually, I'll start with a smaller piece. Like here, this one is seriously, you wanted to do this, right? Come try it. Okay. Yeah. So I want you to feel it. This one's whiter. Okay. Here, try it. Just hold it and then just kind of like a pen, like you're writing your name. Yes, that's a great idea. Everybody come sign this or put your name in it. Yeah. Or a symbol that represents who you are. A heart, devil's trident, whatever. I don't know. Isn't it feel good? Everybody come try this. I mean, it's therapy. It's the cheapest. Well, I shouldn't say cheapest because it's not cheap. Doesn't that feel good? I know, right? You can keep going. Go for it. Let me see how you did. Oh, you did good. So come here and now smooth it off with this. You need to smooth it so you can feel it.
And so along with it.
Yep, along with it. So earthenware, there's not hardly any grog added to it. Grog can be shells, it can be stones, it can be any type of material that you're going to add to it that's not going to burn out of the kiln. So it can be lots of different things. I think this is like 4%. You can feel that right there. Feel that right there. Like right here where my finger is, forefinger. Okay, that has a little bit of sand to it. And like these pieces, once they dry, you're going to feel just tiny, but it's only 4%. So it's 4% of the clay body is actual grog, which in this case is normally a sand. They use like a fire sand. It's not going to melt because sand can melt. It does. It makes glass. So lightning hits it, it makes glass. But you can kind of see those ridges right there. That's from where I threw it. When you pull and you have a little resistance, you need to pull at a consistent speed. If you don't, it makes the ridges. But you have American potters that really love that texture when they throw, and it's just amazing. And then you have your Asian potters that are a little bit more refined. Stoneware has a higher amount of grog. It's just earthenware with stone in it, basically, or sand, or like I say, you can add shells. That's what they used to do for temper, what they call temper. They would crush up shells and put them in their pots. Carrie's done that before. And from what I'm learning, and I'm still new at this process. Like I said, it's only been 6 years. For every rule, there's an exception. The only exception or rule that I was saying by is clay does not tolerate haste. I read that in a book. You can't rush it. It's kind of like a good recipe. You can't rush it because if you do, you're going to fail. You will fail. So that's the only thing. Anything else, I think you can take it and you can push it and put your own spin on it and learn from it. But that's what I've found. But right now, I'm kind of in the swirly stage. Yeah. Swirlies are nice. I think they're very soothing. And when you feel them and they're dry, it just really, it's kind of like soft music. It just really soothes my brain, And, you look at our Southeastern styles, they were smoothing. Some of them were kind of geometric. A lot of them were. But then you still, a lot of the wind movement, the water movement, very soothing, telling that story. My pieces do tell a story. They're not as literal as some potters, but each piece definitely has a reason and an emotion attached to it. And I usually try to name all of them, which is hard to do, especially for the smaller pieces. But the larger pieces, it's usually like that one I just finished and one with it is called Hopeful, because I just feel that, in the world we may have disagreements, but there's always hope that we can come to rectify a situation. Doesn't matter what it is. And so as I'm working on that, I'm thinking of ways to make relationships better, lives better, if you're hopeful. And so and also the white, the purity of white, I think is very important. So, but that's pretty much my process. And then once I'll carve it, I'll sometimes come back and lightly sand it, but most often I don't. I'll just let the water go back to it and kind of smooth it and brush it. and then I'll do the bisque firing. I usually fire to a higher bisque setting, which is 1940, which is kind of high, which isn't called an 04 cone. But I found that it really kind of takes some of the impurities out if you're going to glaze it later, and then you have less fracture if you're going to raku it. You don't have to go that high. It's just one I've chosen to do. And then at that time, I'll decide, am I going to pine fire it, with pine needles? Because that gives, and when you pine fire it, it's just it's almost like going to church. It's just the wind takes the flames and the smoke, and it just speaks around the pot. It's almost like it's being enveloped. The pine needles really give it just an amazing effect. And then if I don't do that, I'll use a commercial glaze, which you can buy or order online. It is liquid glass, basically. And there are a lot of options with glazes right now, especially in high fire. They're coming out with, new chemical components that really cause your glazes to flow or move. I don't really like firing that high right now. I might later. I think I need a ways to go on that, but to learn all the recipes. But like I said, I'm actually using underglazes and furniture stains now, because once it's fired, you can pretty much do whatever you want. It's not 100% vitrified, but it still will hold water. But then you just have to decide if you want it to be a decorative piece or a utilitarian piece. Do you want to drink coffee out of it, or do you want it to sit in a bit, you kind of look at it that way as to what you're going to proceed with next. A lot of my smaller pieces, I will glaze the inside just for the simple fact that if a customer or client buys a piece, if they're going to put a plant in it or something, you want to make sure it doesn't at a later date fail. It would take a long time, because that's part of the reason if I hire, but it can happen. Well, I can carve some more. Victoria, you want to carve? Do you want to try some more? What? Well, it is too much fun. I'm going back in your little pieces here. No. We're just going to... So no questions? What? Yeah, my mom used to say, go pick up rocks. Yeah. Yes, sir. I worked with gourds. I did gourd pyrography. I can't say that, pyrography. And in fact, I have 3 pieces here up by the stairway as you come in off the parking garage. Some of my gourds are. And I wanted to use a medium that was a little bit more substantial. And I've always wanted to work with clay, but I was kind of scared of it. So for about 2 years, I didn't do anything but watch videos on YouTube, the Asian Masters. And then I had the opportunity to go through the Cherokee National Treasure Mentorship Program, which is a great program offered by the Cherokee Nation, because I would have never been able to take that level of class without that program. And so I went to the Art Center, which is in Tahlequah. The Cherokee Nation has, that offers space for Cherokee artists to begin and take classes. And I just sat down at the wheel and threw a pot. First time. And Lisa's like, I can't. My friend Lisa Rutherford, she's also a wonderful potter. And I just knew at that moment that was, yes, totally. I've always thought that was kind of cliche, that people would say, oh, no, I knew. Totally. Just like it clicked. And so with his guidance, and, it really started more of a sculptural aspect. And then I started taking the class with Troy Jackson. And I've taken from him for 2.5 years, I think. And his was more of a the pottery style. And they both are amazing, amazing mentors, have taught me so much. And that just kind of solidified my journey with clay. And I think it's something that is kind of, you have to do it every day. Troy told me one time, I said, there are times when I just don't have anything left. And he's like, well, one of his instructors told him that the first thing she did every morning before she did anything was threw 5 pots every morning. And that didn't mean she kept them all, but she threw 5 pots every morning. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I started, when I am having a bad day and I don't want to do it, I make myself do it. And then before you know it, you're making a big piece. So this looks a little wonky because I can't really see, but you kind of get the idea. Yeah, it has been a great journey. I'm just now crossing over to the stainless world, working with stainless steel metal, which is amazing. And I have a sculpture going up at the Cherokee Nation Cultural Pathway in Tahlequah in 2 weeks. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. It's 11 feet tall. Yeah, it represents the weeping eye, and I'm very proud of it. Gang, it's been real. Thank you. Look me up on Instagram, Facebook. That's the best way to get in touch with me. So yeah, hook me up on Facebook or just send me a message.